Okay, good morning everyone. At tayo po ay magsisimula na, pero bago po tayo magsimula, today is actually December 12, 2024 po. At nandito po tayo ngayon sa National Policy, no, sa ating webinar na ginagawa ngayon tungkol sa Philippine-China relations, perspective and challenges. At bago po tayo magsimula ay bigay po muna natin ang isang panalangin at kasunod po nun ay ang pambansang awit po ng Pilipinas. Okay, let's start for our opening prayer. Please share audio. Wala pong audio.
Heavenly Father,
Nawala. Nawala yung audio.
we come to you today with humble hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom as we begin this program. Lord, we ask that you would bless every person who has gathered here today, and that you would be present with us in a special way. We pray that this program would be a time of learning, growth, and fellowship for all of us. Help us to listen to one another with open hearts and open minds, and to support one another as we strive to serve you in all that we do. Please give us the strength and the courage to follow your will, and to use the gifts and talents you have given us to make a positive difference in the world. We pray all of this in your holy name. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, kelas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigiw, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong bangaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhagin pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng partay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Okay. Thank you so much sa atin pong NP Multimedia Consultancy Services, sa atin pong team. Thank you so much sa ating mga technical. Okay, good morning everyone. Gusto ko lang pong i-acknowledge yung pong lahat ng ating mga nandito ngayon. One is our resource speaker and of course ang ating mga media friends, ano po. At nandito po of course si Professor Roland Simbulan, yung ating pong mga media ngayon na nandyan, si Manila Times, Franco Jose Barona, and nandito ron po si, I don't know if EY Torres is Sherry Ann Torres from Abante, no? Radyo Abante siya. And we have also our guest na nandito, si Cynthia. Pwede po, remind ko lang po sa lahat po ng ating mga media friends, please rename your names na nakikita po sa Zoom at pakilagay lang po ang inyong media outlet and of course yung inyo pong name to properly acknowledge you. And nandito po nakikita ko po si Mr. Edwin Florida. Yan. Sino pa ba? Okay. We are also waiting for our other media friends po na nag-commit naman din po na mag-attend po sila sa atin pong webinar for today. At anyway, tayo po ngayon ay naka-live stream sa ating pong The National Policy Facebook page at pwede nyo pong i-share yan. And later on, I will send you also the website ng nationalpolicy.com. Makikita nyo rin po yan. But again, sa lahat po ng ating mga kaibigan po na nandito po ngayon, i-remind ko lang po kayo na please use the chat feature sa ating pong Zoom kung may mga questions po kayo o concerns. At paki-click rin po ang raise hand feature kung meron po kayong mga comments para po hindi po tayo nagsasabay-sabay at malinaw po ang ating pong discussion for today. First ay bibigyan po muna natin ang ating pong resources speaker para po ng oras para ipresenta po ang kanyang discussion about Philippine-China relations, perspective, and challenges. So yun po yung ating pag-uusapan for today. The host po ng webinar na ito ay ang The National Policy o ang NP Media Consultancy Services at sila po ay matatagpuan sa mga social media accounts, ang Facebook page po ng The National Policy, makikita nyo po yon. It was actually posted naman dyan. At makikita nyo rin po ang website nila, thenationalpolicy.com. Sino nga ba itong NP Media Consultancy, no? Well, NP Multimedia Consultancy Services is actually a dynamic company dedicated to enhance public access to vital information through its flagship platform, the National Policy News website. So, diyan nyo po makikita yung mga news and current events po, hindi lang po dito sa Pilipinas, kundi sa buong mundo. With a commitment to transparency, accuracy, and timely reporting. And this website also serves a comprehensive resource for national policy developments, government initiatives, and public affairs. So yung pong mga nakikita po natin ngayon, it's not just about issue of politics, it's about the policy development. Dito po makikita natin kung ano po ang mga nangyayari sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo at bakit nga ba sila nagkakaroon ng kaunlaran. At nakikita po natin din yung mga inisyatiba o ginagawa po ng pamahalaan sa iba't ibang mundo sa pamagitan po ng website na ito. And our mission actually is to empower citizens by providing insightful and accessible information on national policies and governance, fostering an informed public that can engage in civic discourse. And our vision to be a globally recognized platform for accessible and reliable information, empowering citizens worldwide to engage actively in governance and community affairs. So, sa madaling salita po, layunin po natin talaga ibahagi po ang totoo, ibahagi po natin ang mga kaganapan sa buong mundo para hindi lamang po isa lang yung nakikita natin. At bukod po dyan ay ito rin po yung platform na kung saan ay binibigyang kapangyarihan din po ang ating mga mamamayan, hindi lamang po sa Pilipinas kundi sa buong mundo, para po maging aktibo po tayo na nagbabantay, nagmamatsyag, at nakikipag-cooperate o nakikipagtulungan sa ating pamahalaan para po magkaroon po tayo ng isang bayang mapayapa, maunlad, at nagkakaisa po, hindi lamang po ang ilang mga bansa, kundi ang lahat po ng mga bansa sa buong mundo. Yun po yung mission naman at nais po ng ating kumpanya. Anyway, tayo po sa susunod na bahagi ay ibibigay po natin ang resources speaker. Meron po tayong dalawa po dapat yung ating resources speaker, no? But apparently si Carlos Enrique Valdez III ay may equally important engagement na nataon po na nasabay dito. But I hope makahabol po yung kanyang mga statements dahil may mga ibinigay po tayong mga frequently questions na pwede niya pong sagutin. But anyway, ito pong ating bisita o panauhin ngayon. Actually, na-interview ko na rin po siya doon sa aming palatuntunan sa DZXL. Ang inyo po palang lingkod ay si Cathy Cruz. Kilala na po ako ng mga kasama po nating media. At ako po ay kasalukuyan pong program host sa DZXL, ang ating katipunan. Ang programa po ng kilala po natin na dating Professor Antonio Valdez. Since 2003 pa po yung kanyang palatuntunan, but I entered ang ating katipunan program in DZXL in 2010 pa po. So kami po ay mapapakinggan ninyo tuwing araw po ng linggo, alas 7 hanggang alas 9 po ng gabi. We talk about international and local issues, hindi lamang po political but of course economics, and a lot of geopolitics. Anyway, ang atin pong panauhin ngayon si si Professor Roland G. Sembulan. He is actually a retired as a full-time faculty at the University of the Philippines in April 2019 with the highest academic rank of Professor 12 in Development Studies and Public Management after 36 years of teaching. He still teaches at UP's graduate school as a professorial lecturer 5. So, UP awarded po ang ating panauhin ngayon in the UP Centennial Professorial Chair during its 100th anniversary in 2008. He served as chair of the Department of Social Sciences for 6 years and research coordinator of the Manila Studies Program. He served as a vice chancellor for planning and development at UP Manila, after which he was elected in 2006 by the 3,600 strong faculty of the UP system to represent them as faculty regent in UP. Actually, it's the highest policy-making body, the UP Board of Regents. From 1987 to 1995, he served as senior political consultant at the Philippine Senate. He is the sole author of 9 books on Philippine foreign policy, Philippine-U.S. relations. Among the most notable are the Philippine or notable books, no? Author of the 9 books na ginawa po niya is ito pong The Basis of Our Insecurity and Forging a Nationalist Foreign Policy, which was actually translated into Japanese and published and distributed in Japan. Professor Sembulan actually served as the national chairman of the Nuclear Free Philippines Coalition from 1988 to 2005. Currently, he is chair of the Center for People's Empowerment and Governance, or CENPEG, a public policy think tank. Professor Roland Sembulan is a lifetime member of the prestigious Honor Society, the Phi Kappa Phi, and the Phi Gamma Mu International Honor Society for Excellence in the Social Sciences. Hindi ko na patatagalin dahil marami pa po siyang mga napahanay na mga pagkilala po na iginawad po kay Professor Roland. Magandang umaga po, Professor Roland Sembulan.
Magandang umaga, Kathy, at magandang umaga sa lahat. I am honored to be invited to be your speaker for this morning's discussion on Philippine-China relations, perspectives, and challenges, which I'm going to present from the Filipino perspective and Filipino national interest. My friends, current Philippine-China relations is actually overshadowed by the rivalry and conflict in the country, as manifested in the positioning of the two factions of our ruling elite in the Philippines today. The pro-US Marcos dynasty and the pro-China Duterte dynasty, two of the biggest and strongest dynasties in the Philippines. However, neither is pro-Filipino. The late Senator Claro M. Recto emphasized that foreign policy should be dictated by the country's national interest. It is obvious that the United States and China are pursuing actions in the Philippines and the Pacific in line with their particular national interests. What is China's national interest in our region? For China, the control of the South China Sea, which includes the West Philippine Sea, is of paramount importance to defend itself from external aggression and ensure the safe passage of its commodities. Because at present, China relies heavily on its exports and imports, which ply the South China Sea for the strength of its economy. Thus, China has imposed the 10-dash line, which former Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio described as both a, quote, maritime claim and a territorial claim, end of quote. Justice Carpio explains that the 10-dash line is a maritime claim as this line encloses about 85.7% of the South China Sea. China thus claims that the waters, the living resources in the water column, and the mineral resources in the seabed of the maritime areas enclosed by the 10-dash line encroaches on large areas of the exclusive economic zone and extended continental shelves of Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. Further, Justice Carpio writes that the 10-dash line is also a territorial claim, and to quote him again, as a territorial claim, the 10-dash line is a claim to all the geologic features above water at high tide, which are subject to sovereignty and are entitled to territorial seas. This claim includes all the high tide features enclosed by the 10 dashes. The disputed high tide geological features are situated in the Paracels, near Vietnam, the Spratlys, and the Scarborough Shoal, end of quote. China thus has occupied the Panatag Shoal, also known as the Scarborough Shoal, since 2012, when it blocked Filipino fishermen from proceeding into the shoal, which at 120 nautical miles from Zambales is inside the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. The decision in July 2016 of the International Arbitration Court recognizing the Philippines' sovereign rights to areas within its exclusive economic zone has been rejected by China, however. China has since then pursued the following actions contrary to Philippine interests. First, in 2017, China seized the tiny sandbar called Sandy Cay, about 2 nautical miles from Pag-asa Island, which at about 37 hectares is the largest Philippine-occupied island in the Spratlys. Second, China had built an artificial island more than 7 times larger than Pag-asa Island. Third, in spite of the July 12, 2016 arbitral award ruling that Subi Reef is part of the territorial sea of Pag-asa Island, China has transformed it into a naval base with airstrips. And fourth, China's use of so-called gray zone tactics against the Philippine Coast Guard and Navy. These refer to acts of confrontation and conflict to achieve political objectives that arguably fall below the threshold of armed conflict. They refer usually to non-military actions, including meddling, social media, and cyber attacks, verbal attacks and confrontational and physical intimidation and coercion, including the use of military-grade lasers. In relation to China's aggression in Philippine territory, the gray zone tactics includes preventing resupply missions to the BRP Sierra Madre. And lastly, Filipino fishermen have been prevented by Chinese Coast Guards, Navy, and militia from fishing in the West Philippine Sea. The harassment involves the use of water cannons, military-grade lasers, intentional ramming, among others. Now, let's go to the national interest that is being advanced by the United States in our part of the world and country. Paramount to U.S. national interest is its assertion of being the sole superpower in the world. To achieve this, the United States is enforcing its rules-based international order, quote unquote. Under the Biden administration, the U.S. foreign policy is contained in the 2022 National Security Strategy, which was released in October 2022. The document lays down the strategies of the U.S. retaining its position as the #1 dominant power in the world in the present century. US President Joseph Biden declared that this is, quote, the era of competition between democracies and autocracies, end of quote, with China as America's most consequential geopolitical challenge. Biden asserts that, and I quote again, when he says, I am more confident than ever that the United States has everything we need to win the competition for the 21st century, end of quote. The United States advances its national interest through the retention and expansion of its military bases in the Philippines and in Asia surrounding China. It has adopted the Indo-Pacific strategy, so-called. This strategy states that under the Biden administration, the United States is determined to strengthen its long-term position in and commitment to the Indo-Pacific. They will focus on every corner of the region, from Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia to South Asia and Oceania, including the Pacific Islands. And so, at a time when many of their allies and partners, including in Europe, they are increasingly turning their own attention to the region, and when there is broad bipartisan agreement in the US Congress that the United States must do. In a quickly changing strategic landscape, the US recognizes that American interests can only be advanced if they firmly anchor the United States in the Indo-Pacific and strengthen the region itself alongside their closest allies and partners. Another way by which the United States advances its national interest in our region, and especially in the Asia-Pacific region, is its unilateral adoption of the freedom of navigation operation, which allows its naval forces to freely operate in the South China Sea by ostensibly promoting the rights, the freedoms, and lawful uses of the sea, recognized in international law by challenging restrictions on innocent passage imposed by the People's Republic of China, Taiwan, or Vietnam. The United States is also preparing for war against China. The expansion of US bases or basing structures in the Philippines with sites near Taiwan and the China base in the West Philippine Sea and the more frequent joint military exercises in the Philippines are two indications of this. Another is the validation and certification by Pentagon in June 2023 of the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center in Hawaii, which according to the commander of the US Army Pacific, General Charles Flynn, is critical to preparing for conflict in the Indo-Pacific region, quote unquote. The Philippines' foreign policy clearly aligns itself today with the United States in this US-China rivalry for control of the Asia-Pacific, or what they refer to today as the Indo-Pacific region, and the imminent possibility of war between the two powers. A former Armed Forces Chief of Staff, General Emmanuel Bautista, is quoted as saying that, and I quote General Bautista, "We are preparing because the threat has become more real now, and we can no longer brush it aside. In a long time, we never saw a credible threat of invasion of the Philippine territory. But now it's possible." He added that it was impossible for the Philippines not to get drawn in a Taiwan or South China Sea conflict, being a key terrain for the US-China competition, wherein control of the country could give either side a marked advantage over the adversary. End of quote. That was General Emmanuel Bautista. The Philippines' foreign policy of being adjunct to US national interest is in sharp contrast to those of Vietnam and Indonesia, our neighbors who uphold their national interest over other countries. Vietnam has adopted a four no policy, a foreign policy of no siding with one country against another, no military alliances, no foreign military bases, and no using force or threatening the use of force in international relations. Vietnam has established a comprehensive strategic partnership with China, with Russia, with India, with South Korea, and even with the United States. Indonesia, on the other hand, our southern neighbor, has an independent and active foreign policy which, does not mean neutrality and disengagement. Instead, it places great emphasis on an active role and engagement with all countries, guided by strategic autonomy and firm adherence to international law. In other words, Indonesia's independent and active foreign policy is not a neutral policy. It is one that does not align with the superpowers, nor does it bind the country to any military pact. Now, what is a truly independent foreign policy for the Philippines? And I think this is where we should focus on in this discussion. In order to achieve a truly independent foreign policy and end our mendicancy in the international sphere, we need to fulfill the prerequisites of self-reliance, to feed, to clothe, to arm ourselves. To achieve this, we must first establish a self-reliant economy with strong agriculture and domestic industrial capacity. Second, resolve the armed conflict within the country by addressing the roots of the armed insurgency. Third, we need to strengthen the country's defense capability by ending dependence on outside forces. The first step should be the removal of the US bases in the Philippines. And lastly, expand relations and cooperation with other countries. At present, in asserting our sovereignty against China, we must arouse and mobilize the people to defend the country's sovereignty and our sovereign right to the West Philippine Sea by opposing the claim of and occupation by China of our exclusive economic zone. Next, persisting in upholding the arbitral ruling through the diplomatic channels, because this arbitral ruling is now part of international law. Relying on our own strength to assert our sovereign rights to Pag-asa Island, Panatag Reef, Ayungin Shoal, and other parts of the West Philippine Sea. Next, demanding that the Philippine government and the immediate oil and gas exploration in the Reed Bank. And lastly, demanding the end to China's occupation of Panatag Shoal and the dismantling of its military base in Mischief Reef. At present, in asserting our sovereignty against the United States, we must arouse and mobilize the people to defend the country's sovereignty and our sovereign right to the West Philippine Sea by first exposing and opposing the self-serving agenda of the United States. It uses this as an excuse, or it uses as an excuse China's aggression to expand its military forces and bases in the Philippines. Also exposing and strongly opposing the war preparations of the United States and President Marcos Jr.'s consent to making the Philippines the launching pad of the US war against China, which will endanger the lives of Filipinos. And lastly, opposing the presence of US military bases in the country and demanding the removal of all US bases in the Philippines. The late Senator Claro M. Recto's words still ring out today, which in 1951, during his time, served as a warning. And this appears to have been disregarded by all sitting presidents in Malacanang, including the current one. These include the denial and closure of the memory of the Filipinos' courageous struggle against foreign invasions, the reality of a foreign policy of mendicancy, and the fallacy of Filipinos as a sacrificial race cannot be denied. According to Recto, let not Macaulay's traveler from New Zealand exploring the spectral ruins of Manila in the course of his post-atomic war peregrinations and cautiousness, testing the radioactive waters of the Pasig from the broken arches of the Quezon Bridge, have cause to ponder that in those shattered tenements and poisoned fields and waters once lived a nation unique in the annals of mankind, free men who put their liberties on the auction block, a sacrificial race with a mysterious urge to suicide, who, being weak and weaponless, took upon themselves the quarrels of the strong, and having been warned of their abandonment, still persisted in their lonely course, and whose brutalized and monstrously deformed survivors, scrambling with stunted limbs in the infected debris of their liberated cities, had forgotten even the echo of the memory of the strange illusion for which their race had fought and perished. End of quote from the speech of the late Senator Claro M. Recto. This inability of the current Philippine ruling elite to heed the words of Senator Recto is the reason why it is up to the Filipino people to end mendicancy and to fight for a truly independent foreign policy and for a sovereign Philippines. We should all be dedicated as Filipinos to working towards this vision of a nation for our children and for our children's future. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you so much, Professor. At ang daming mga napakaraming mga detalye na mga binanggit ni Professor. But isa lang po yung napakahalaga po nun na kung i-summarize mo, isa po yung napakahalaga dito. Hindi po maganda talaga ang gera. Hindi maganda ang pakikipag-away sa kahit na kaninong bansa. Hindi maganda na maging instrumento ang bansang Pilipinas sa pakikipag-away ng ibang bansa laban sa ibang bansa, lalo na at karatig nating bansa. Marami tayong mga dapat na tignan at silipin, ika nga. At ito yung, sabi nga ito yung concern ng lahat at concern lalo na ni Professor Simbulan sa totoong independence o kalayaan ng Pilipinas. Ito yung sinasabi nating independent foreign policy, yung ating sovereignty, yung ating kasarinlan. And kanina merong akong mga ilang bagay na binanggit niya para ma-achieve natin yung tinatawag natin na sa harap ng mga conflicts na ito yung self-reliance natin to feed, to clothe and arm ourselves and establish self-reliant economy. resolve the armed conflict at strengthen yung ating bansa, country's capability, lalo na sa pagpapatanggal ng US bases dito sa ating bansa. Expand relation and cooperation in other countries. Ito yung talagang tumimo sa lahat ng mga sinabi ni Professor Sibulan. Anyway, we have other members of the media and mga visitors natin dito. Gusto ko lang i-acknowledge yung ating mga kasama dito mula andyan po si Mr. Edwin Florida, Eli Torres, from the Manila Times, Franco Jose Barona, si Jackie. Again, makikisuyo po ako. Pakilagay po ang inyong media entity. Of course, buong pangalan po sana. Jackie Erica Lopez, Jared Go from FFCAAI, and sino pa to? Si Je lang nakalagay. And Jovi Marillo, si Kent, si Leia Ringor from SL, Lisa Bell Villanueva, kay Mayo, kay Nelson, kay Rudy, and of course mula sa tuklasinnatin.net at Katipunan Channel. Yan yung ilang ating mga members. But anyway, please be reminded na ang ating pong webinar na ito ay naka-livestream din po sa pamagitan po ng FB page ng the National Policy FB page po. So if you have questions, pwede rin pong mag-raise lang po kayo ng hand. Maybe siguro magandang mag-throw ng isang question dito. Pipili ako from the Manila Times. Franco, please, you can open your microphone, turn on your microphone and camera if you want to. Pwede naman ding audio lang. Franco? Hello? Let's see. Anyway, habang ayan na. Franco, hi, good morning. Hello? Go ahead, Franco. Anyway, si Franco Jose Barona is actually a veteran reporter, writer sa Manila Times po. Okay, go ahead, Franco. Hello? Okay. Mukhang Hello? Mukhang may Ayan, mukhang may problema pa siya. But anyway, kanina siguro i-summarize ko lang yung ibubulet ko lang para lang please correct me, Professor Simbulan, kung tama po yung Well, actually, kanina po binanggit nyo nga po yung current Philippine-China relations are actually overshadowed by geopolitical rivalry and the ruling elite. At eto nga, may mention ka kanina, pro-China dynasty under the Duterte administration and the pro-US dynasty under naman kay Marcos administration. On the China's national interest, ito yung sa West Philippine Sea is paramount for defense against external aggression. Maritime and territorial claims, sabi ni Justice Carpio highlights the 10-dash line as a claim covering 87% of the area. China actually asserts the waters enclosed by the 10-dash line are part of economic zone and territorial claim. And on the Justice Carpio's perspective, China is legally bound by the tribunal's ruling whether China likes it or not. That is the compulsory nature of international law. However, China has gone rogue, refusing to vacate mischief Reef within a tribunal ruled belongs to the Philippine EEZ. Okay, the tactics and implications, ito yung green zone tactics, harassment of Filipino fishermen, has been ongoing actions aligned with U.S. National interests. With the Biden administration policy, the national security strategy in October 2022 retained the U.S. Position as the dominant global power. The era is framed as an era of competition between democracy and autocracy, expansion of military bases in the Indo-Pacific region. Of course, dagdag pa rito, strategic focus on advancing U.S. national interests in Asia, particularly the Pacific region, and preparedness for potential war with China. So yan yung Biden administration policy. On the regional foreign policies naman, well, dito sa Vietnam, policy of four no's on foreign policy, and meanwhile, Indonesia has independent foreign policy prioritizing autonomy. Does not mean neutrality but adheres firmly to non-alignment, not part of any foreign military pact. And sa Philippines naman, path to self-resilience, strengthen agriculture. Ito yung binanggit ko kanina, resolve internal armed conflicts, build defense capability independent of foreign powers such as U.S. military bases, mobilize the population to uphold sovereignty and arbitrary rulings. And then demands for sovereignty and action, immediate oil and gas exploration in the Reed Bank, and China's encroachment on Philippine territories, defend sovereign rights without foreign reliance, and then criticism and historical reflections, opposition to Marcos' perceived consent for the Philippines being a launching pad for U.S.-China conflicts, opposition to U.S. military bases in the country, and according to Senator Menanciani, Professor Simbulan, that according to former Senator Recto, warning from 1951 remains relevant today. Challenges the ruling elite inability to uphold independent policies, advocates for a dedicated independent Philippine nation for the future of Filipino children. So, yan po yung mga bullet inputs po na kalap natin. And don't worry, hihingin po natin kay Professor Roland Simbulan for the sake of our media friends yung kanyang statement. We will ask Professor Simbulan na magkaroon po tayo ng kopya so it can be farmed out to our media friends. At ma-post na rin natin dito sa ating FB page for everybody's information. Okay? So, yes, asa na? Si Franco. Okay. Go ahead, Franco.
Yes, good morning, Ma'am Kathy.
Good
Can
morning.
you hear me? Nawala lang po lang signal. Professor Simbulan, what role does the South China Sea dispute play in shaping the political relationship between the two states and China?
Pag-iulit lang.
Yeah. Professor Simbulan, ano po ang nagagawa ng ang role ng South China Sea dispute sa pag-shape ng political relationship ng Philippines and China?
Ano ang magagawa?
What role does the South China Sea dispute play in shaping the political relationship between the Philippines and China?
Medyo
The role medyo static.
Opo. Franco, kasi medyo kahit ako hindi ko nilakasan ko na dito, hindi ko masyadong maano. Pwedeng paki-message mo yung question.
Nasa Viber kasi nasa ibang nasa coverage.
Mahina yung okay. Sige. I'll check sa Viber, Franco. Wait lang Okay. Sabi, ito po yung question, Professor Simbulan, ng ating si Franco. Sabi niya, what role does the South China Sea dispute play in shaping the political relationship between the Philippines and China? Professor Simbulan.
Well, the South China Sea, you see, the South China Sea has historically been is a source, no, a source of contact between China and the Philippines historically, because it was through the South China Sea that Chinese merchants or the Chinese people actually first got in contact with the communities, pre-colonial communities in the Philippines, even before the coming of the Spaniards. No, the sea, South China Sea, was a kind of bridge, no, a source of contact and even cooperation and as well as trade. Unlike now, when where this sea has become a source of antagonism and conflict, and of course, especially in the case of China, the South China Sea's importance has become several times significant because China relies heavily on the uh, goods, no, its exports and imports that pass through the South China Sea, no, around more than 60% of the total volume of its international trade relies on the sea. That's why I think that especially for China, it's the South China Sea uh, has to maintain itself as one where there is no conflict, no, because if there is a conflict, it will be China that will be hit the hardest, no, among the many countries in the world, including the ASEAN countries, which trade heavily with China. So the South China Sea is very significant in the economies not just of China but of the entire ASEAN today. That's why I think most ASEAN countries would prefer that this present antagonism and conflict with China remains peaceful, no, and they would rather see uh, exchange of goods, uh, uh, being transported in this seas surrounding our region, rather than because of the antagonism and conflict, rather than seeing the militarization of our region, which will put us in danger of war and possibly conflict that will be, that will have really disastrous consequences to all of us.
Okay, meron din tayong question dito from Rod Viaje. Sabi niya, since we all know that Murillo map was already returned to the Philippines, what will be the effect to our claims in South China Sea? Professor.
Well, the Murillo map, of course, reinforces our position, definitely. It will add to the uh, reinforcing of the position of the Philippines, and to our victory. It will add to our victory in the arbitral ruling in 2016, because I hope that the countries of all countries of the world, including China, which signed the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, will abide with the terms and conditions uh, that have been uh, decided by the arbitral ruling, because after all, this was a collective agreement in which was established precisely to settle disputes like this, no, in our modern era, no. No country today, actually, no country today can uh, can base its territorial or maritime claims on history, because if that was done unilaterally, according to the perspective or narrative of that particular country making that claim, then our even former colonizers from Europe, which practically directly colonized many countries of the world, can use that historical claim, especially on their former colonies, no, former colonies in Asia, Africa, or Latin America, which I think runs contrary to the very principle of establishing the United Nations and establishing United Nations conventions like the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Okay, Professor. Second question po naman mula uli kay Franco Barona. What diplomatic strategies could the Philippines adopt to address challenges in the bilateral relationship without escalating tensions?
Well, in principle, it's better to keep on talking, no, keep on dialoguing, keep on the negotiations, both bilateral and multilateral. Keep on doing this because so long as there is dialogue, either between our two countries and or together with other countries, at least we can exchange views, no, and maybe uh, try to resolve this matter peacefully without engaging in the use of military force, no, because it's better, as I've always said, it's better to exchange words, no matter how harsh our words are that we are exchanging, so long as we are not exchanging bullets, no,
Tama.
which will only destroy us all. Because the weapons that we have today, or the weapons that are at the arsenals of the big powers that I've been discussing this morning, are so devastating. They're weapons of mass destruction that fused will make us a battlefield, no, our country as a battlefield, and many of our people, including non-combatants, will be killed or maimed forever.
Mm-mm. Okay, Professor. Actually may tanong din dito si Jane Key Lope, but it seems na parehas din ng tanong ni Manila Times kanina. Sabi niya kasi in light of recent tensions in the West Philippine Sea, how can the Philippines balance asserting its territorial rights while maintaining diplomatic relations with China? So parehas lang naman din. But meron siyang another question ay mula naman kay Jared Go from FFCAAI. Singapore has been modeled in ASEAN for independent foreign policy and neutrality in engaging with China and the West. Can the Philippines replicate this model given our historical and geopolitical circumstances? Professor?
Yes, we can always learn from our countries, no, especially our neighbors. That's why I cited. Well, of course, I did not mention Singapore, but this is the reason why I mentioned the foreign policy of Vietnam and also of Indonesia, because we can learn from the experience in dealing with the big powers, no, where their relations with China, with the United States, is not overshadowed by the rivalry between these two powers. In fact, what is happening is that these two countries, and I think, and that includes perhaps Singapore, they're ab- they're able to take advantage of the competition between the two big powers in order to advance their interests, because these two rivals are trying to get the attention of the smaller countries, and in so doing, perhaps we can take advantage of that, so we can maximize in our through our negotiations the things that we want to get, no, to support or to advance our economy, and perhaps improve our trade with these countries that are competing with one another. So there's much to learn from our neighboring countries, no? And that includes, of course, that includes Singapore, in addition to Vietnam and Indonesia, which I already cited to you. So these examples of countries right behind beside us, which are also archipelagic island countries, show that it is possible to navigate, no, to navigate a path that will maintain the the non-violent nature of our relations and relations with other countries, and at the same time, perhaps because of the geopolitical location of the Philippines, we might be able to even help resolve this conflict between the United States and China. No, and I think that's where countries where we are a part, no, like ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Perhaps as a collective, we can all we can we sorry we can all try to mediate, no, so that the apocalyptic possibilities will not happen in case of conflict between the two big giants.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Meron din po tayo mga frequently asked questions ano para lang po din sa ating marami pong mga nagpapadala po ng mga questions ngayon. But let me share also ito pong frequently asked questions. How has the Philippines geopolitical strategy evolved in response to China's growing influence in the region? Actually, marami po to. Pero magandang isa-isahin po natin etong mga questions po na to. Professor?
Well, on that first question, precisely our geography, no, where we are like uh, a country that is facing the mainland Asia. Uh, because of our location, I think many countries in the past, like countries from Europe and the United States, have become interested in the Philippines, no? Because remember when Spain reached our part of the world, they looked at the Philippines as a kind of jumping board, no? A springboard from which they can perhaps expand their explorations and also explore more colonies, no? Since we're like a boat, no, floating just in front of the mainland Asia. In the case of the United States, they became interested in the Philippines because they looked at it as a jumping board, the Philippines as a jumping board towards trying to get into the China market, no, which is a vast market with so many people, even at that time of the beginning of the 20th century. So, well, um, we cannot blame ourselves because of our geography. No, we were put there. This is the country we were born, and this is where we are located. Because of this location, perhaps we can also become a bridge towards the settlement of uh, conflicts, possible geopolitical conflicts that may occur because of because of our location. I think we are in a position together with other ASEAN countries to try to mediate, no, uh, with the countries that are not seeing eye to eye, or our competitors, especially competitors in their economy. No?
Mm. Okay, a question from the Manila Times uli kay Franco. How significant is China as a trading partner and investor in the Philippine economy? Are there risks to becoming overly reliant on Chinese investments, Professor?
Well, there is always a risk, because we are a small country, a smaller country. There's always a risk in dealing with big powers or bigger powers, no, like China, because first of all, they are powerful by virtue of their economy, and if we do not watch out, uh, we could be dominated, no, by the bigger powers, the way we were dominated by uh, the United States before. Actually, the U.S. is even farther away, but because of its industrial strength, it managed to perpetuate itself and dominate our institutions, no, which even today are continuing. So, uh, well, the way forward here is for the smaller countries to come together to deal with the bigger powers, and that's why, uh, in the case of the Philippines, we are together in an association that we refer to as the ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which is composed of 10 member countries with a population of almost 560 million people. And that's a large market to deal with from the perspective of China. So together and collectively, perhaps we can negotiate and deal with the bigger powers that are uh, operating or are active in our region, like big powers like the United States, like China, and other countries that may also try to participate in uh, in the growth and prosperity of our region.
Okay.
So our geography, together with other ASEAN countries, gives us an advantage of also benefiting, no, benefiting from that prosperity. Kasi halimbawa, sa number of tourists pa lang, no? Kasi malapit natin ang China. China today is the leading source of tourists, no? Foreign tourists and foreign students in the United States, in Europe, and even increasingly in Japan, no? And almost 130 million Chinese people go on vacation overseas every year, according to statistics, no? So we can in other words, we can benefit from the prosperity of a country like China. And but more than that, we can learn from its own experiences and draw lessons of how a populous country like China, that once was the poorest in the world, was able to uh, develop, and become a high-tech industrialized country, So there are many things to learn from China, I think, that we should not disregard or set aside because of our differences in the South China Sea. I think there should be more interaction between businessmen, academics, in even among local governments, and where we can learn from each other, and much more because they have gone this far. No, we can learn a lot from them, how they were able to, for example, maximize the foreign investments that they invited into their country so that they could catch up, no, in terms of technology and use this foreign technology for their what they refer to as the four modernizations that put China on the map. Yung modernization in its technology, in science, technology, modernization in agriculture,
Mm.
industry, and defense. No, so China, which was once the poorest country in the world with such a huge population, was able to take advantage of this large population and tap it, no, and tap this huge population, and they converted this what used to be a bad thing, no, a large population, into a good thing. No? So they became a very competitive country in terms of inviting foreign direct investment into their country. But they set it's clear from the lessons that they give us that if you are going to engage in such a strategy, you also it must be a give and take. Uh, you know, like in their case, they were able to uh, 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 learn the technologies of these foreign companies and absorb it into their own industries and economy. And I think this is what has made them strong and prosperous as they are today. Thank you.
Mm. Professor, does it apply pa rin dun sa ano kasi ang isang question dito is from the local business perspective. Sabi nila, how can Filipino entrepreneurs leverage opportunities within the Philippine-China trade relationship while mitigating risks? So, um, parehas din ba yung sagot nyo katulad ng tanong kanina ni Franco, Prof?
Yeah, actually marami silang ano kasi ano ba ang ano ngayon ng China, no? Like China is now the practically the factory of the world, no?
Correct.
A high tech uh, it's a high tech industrialized country, and added to that, it is the largest consumer in the world. No, so both in terms of agricultural products and other products that are manufactured by other countries, they're also the biggest consumer of products, no, both industrial and agricultural products. So because of our location, we can use that advantage of because of the close distance that we have. So we can market our agricultural products, no? There used to be a time, by the way, when we were an important source of their imports of bananas, no?
Yes, yes.
I think we have been overtaken by Vietnam because ang advantage ng Vietnam, mas malapit, nakadikit ang Vietnam, may common border sila, China. So Vietnam has actually overtaken us in exporting its bananas, no, to China, which is a very large consumer of bananas. So siguro yung ibang products natin, agricultural products, including pineapple and others, no, may potential yan na maging market ang China because of its location and closeness to us. But
Professor,
that all depends if we maintain siyempre kung antagonistic yung relations natin, we cannot expand
oo nga.
our economic relations with them, no? Maapekto 'yan kasi especially kung lalong militarize ang ating region, ang ating
Yes.
bansa, tapos sila rin they look at us as if they will look at us as a country that endangers their own national security because we allow US EDCA bases here with the missiles trained on them, no?
Mm.
So itong mga ganitong misunderstanding and conflict dapat iwasan, no? Pero dapat ano siguro, it should be mutual, no? I mean, that's why when I am calling for the dismantling and closure of US EDCA bases here,
Mm.
at the same time, gusto ko rin makita na yung mga artificial islands that were created by China in the Spratlys, and which they have militarized in forming naval bases, military bases for their own use, no? Dapat yan isarado rin nila kasi para hindi tayo magkaroon ng dahilan o hindi magkaroon din ang gobyerno natin ng rason kung bakit kailangan natin magkaroon ng US EDCA bases dito. So it has to be mutual, no? And I think dapat meron ding meron ding a kind of trust has to be has to be there should be definitely there should be confidence building measures, no,
Mm.
that will and that this can only happen if there is continuing dialogue, both bilateral and multilateral.
Bilateral. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree, Professor. Another question is what opportunities and challenges arise from China's Belt and Road Initiative for the Philippines? Professor.
Well, I think the BRI, which was initiated by China, is a very brilliant non-military response on their part. Kasi kanina binanggit ko na over the years, no, right after World War II, pinaligid sila ng mga military bases ng US, no? Nakapaligid sa mapa, no? As many as 50 US military bases installations, all the way from Korea, Japan, Guam, Philippines, no, up to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. These are surrounding China, and with the weapons of mass destruction aimed at China, no. Now, ang naging sagot nila diyan, and I think they're doing this because they have learned a lot from the negative lessons of the former Soviet Union, no.
Mm.
Kasi former Soviet Union na rival dati ng US. Nakipag ano yan tit for tat na competition, military arms race with the US, no? And it led to the implosion of the former Soviet economy, and eventually yung fragmentation of the former Soviet Union. They have learned a lot from that lesson, no? Nakita nila na hindi pwedeng tapatan ng military itong ginagawa ng US, kasi kung it will distract from their focus on strengthening their economy, and also helping strengthen their relations with other countries. So anong sagot nila? Instead of imbis na tapatan nila, no, na tangke no,
Mm.
hindi nila ginawa 'yon. Ang kanilang sagot doon, and this is also to counter any possible economic sanction by the US, or because of this encirclement. Ang ginawa nila, nagtayo sila ng maraming mga
Islands.
railways, railroads, no, speed trains and highways, super highways, no, and yung telecom that link China to the Middle East and Europe and also Africa, no.
Mm.
At actually itong BRI na ito yung kanilang linkages din sa mga BRICS countries, no, that they have forged an alliance with globally in order to counter the possibility of being encircled and contained by the United States, no. Kasi ang ginagawa kasi ng US, ang US kasi habang pinakamalakas pa siya sa military globally, the US wants its superior military power to cripple the economy of China. Ang nasa bangungot, it's in the nightmare of every Chinese leader if one of these days the US Navy in this especially in the South China Sea would blockade the Strait of Malacca, no? Dito sa katabi ng Malaysia and Thailand, which is a shipping route, no? For Chinese export. Kung yan ay bablockade, tapos yung Sea of Japan, ibablockade din ng US 7th Fleet, ayan, that will really cripple the Chinese economy. And lalo na yung biggest cities niya, yung Beijing and Shanghai, and the most prosperous provinces of China in Guangdong province, no? So instead of answering that with more military or with the arms race, counter arms race, ang ginagawa nila, nag-ano sila ng infrastructure that will strengthen the economic connection of China with the Southeast Asian countries, where they're setting up super highways and speed train systems, no? Tapos yung ano din, no? Yung connection na ito, itong highways na ito, which will now connect China with the Middle East, Europe and Africa, no? So I think this is the best answer and non-military answer that will uh, lead to more prosperity for China, because it will increase its trade relations with other countries. At the same time, it's a non-military response, no, non-military response, no, to what the United States is doing, which is kasi ang US naman, on the other hand, is relying more and more on its war economy, no. It agitates for more endless wars, no, forever wars, so that its war industries can sell more weapons to other countries, no. Yun ang, I think yun ang ina-avoid ng China gawin, no. As I see it, because it's learning from the lessons of former Soviet Union, which was the first socialist country in the world, no. So I'm hopeful that itong mga countries, ibang countries, which have joined the BRICS, no, and which have joined and have become partners of China. If these alliances will expand further, I think that will be better for the world, no? That will be better for humankind, because rather than encouraging the production of more weapons, which will only be used for conflicts, ang ano diyan, yung ano na ma-encourage yung prosperity, and it will be a shared kind of prosperity, because the shared prosperity that China has experiences is now being shared with its neighbors, no. So dahil marami silang excess capital, ito nagagamit para kanilang to assist in the financing of huge infrastructure projects, including speed trains, no, yung sa Indonesia linking Bandung with Jakarta, tapos na, patatapos lang nung speed train na which was financed by China, no. And Malaysia is also also trying to build its own speed train that will connect its eastern states to its western states, no. And that will be for the better of prosperity of these countries, and I hope that will be the direction, kasi okay lang na kung yung competition economic, no. Sana itong competition ng US and China will just remain as an economic competition, rather than being converted or being militarized into an arms race, no, which is not good, and which will be very, very dangerous for our entire planet and peoples.
Actually, talagang ang effect is the entire humanity, 'di ba, Professor? But dahil napag-usapan ninyo yung tungkol sa mga infrastructure projects, so there's a question dito, sabi ni Franco and the other meron ding isang ganun din yung question niya, so pinagsama ko na lang. Could you provide insights into the impact of Chinese infrastructure projects in the Philippines? Also the cultural and social dynamics. And gusto ko lang din i-inject, Professor, kasi I understand na siguro matagal ng project ito about the Crack Canal. I don't know if you are aware of it. Kasi 'di ba pag may problema dito sa sa Malacca Straits na sinasabi mo kanina. Ngayon kasi parang ginawa ng Thailand in a news report na nakita ko just a while ago, kinonvert nila into land bridge etong Crack Canal na do you have any inputs about this one? Bago niyo po sagutin yung isang question na about the insights and impact of Chinese infrastructure projects. Professor.
Yeah, marami kasing experience ng China eh. Yung tapos high-tech pa ngayon, no?
Mm.
It's leading in the high-tech war with the United States, no? So I think marami silang experiences. They're now even building no, instead of the usual bridges, no?
Mm.
Linking some islands through tunnels, no?
Oo.
Through underground tunnels, no? So marami tayong matututo, and I think that that's why I said that maybe there should be more and more interaction, people to people interactions, not just among businessmen but even among think tanks, no? Kaya nga yung aming think tank, yung CENPEG, Center for People's Empowerment in Governance, for the past few years we have been interacting and dialoguing a lot with their think tanks, in Beijing and Shanghai, because itong think tanks na ito yung kanilang itong mga institutes nilang itong nagbibigay ng advice, brain power sa kanilang mga policy makers, and decision makers in China. So I think there should be more contact, and connections, even sa ating among our academics, among our
Yes.
even students. I'm very happy to note that more and more of actually meron akong dating mga estudyante, who are actually taking their graduate studies in some uh, prestigious universities in China, through scholarships,
Mm.
mas malapit pa yan kaysa pupunta ka ng Europe o ng US,
Mga US. Oo.
And I think that kasi ang China is the future eh.
Oo.
Kung tutungin natin the tectonic
Technology.
plates of the world are
Technology.
shifting to Asia because of China.
Mm.
Dito ang nagiging sentro ng it has shifted from the west. Dati yung west ang center of ika nga ng economies, center of technologies, yung but now it has shifted dito in our part of the world, and we are very I think the Philippines is very lucky that we are near together with other ASEAN countries, but we are very near China geographically, because we can interact more with the China, and we can learn a lot. There's a lot to learn from their experiences of actually. Para sa akin, ang most important lesson we can learn from China is their highly successful anti-poverty strategy.
Strategy.
Yung anti-poverty strategy nila. Kasi even the World Bank, World Bank and the IMF, which are not traditionally funds of China, hinahangaan yung China, and they consider the anti-poverty strategy of China as the most successful anti-poverty experience by humankind. Kasi in a matter of only 4 decades, imagine they were able to
That's one.
lift and liberate 800 million people from extreme poverty to middle class status, no? In a
Grabe.
matter of 4 decades lang, no?
Mm.
Tapos kaya nga itong mga institutions na ito ng West, yun nga yung IMF,
Oo.
lalo
World
lalo
Bank.
na yung UNDP at saka yung World Bank, no?
Mm.
Hangang-hanga kasi they have the statistics nakukuha nila na minomonitor nila yung economy ng China and how it has grown and even
Mm.
outpaced the West, no?
Mm.
Outpaced the United States, outpaced South Korea, outpaced Japan, and even most of the EU countries,
Mm.
no?
Okay.
And so we are lucky that we are here in this part of the world na malapit dyan. We can I think gain a lot from this prosperity that this awakened dragon, I call it an awakened dragon, can offer us, no?
Professor,
But of course,
sige, added question lang, no, related dito sa mga how have cultural exchanges and initiatives between the Philippines and China shaped mutual understanding and cooperation in recent years? Mga nakaraang taon, 'di ba, Professor? Ano bang nangyari noon? Bakit wala naman naging problema? Why all of a sudden, Professor?
well, halimbawa, exchanges na lang ng academics, no? Academics and researchers, no? Yung mga Pilipinong academics who have visited China or studied there and interacted with their institutions, when they come back here, they're able to share yung kasi and correct maybe yung mga misperceptions natin. Kasi may misperceptions tayo about China, no, na produkto ng Cold War, no? Kasi dati talagang China was demonized during the Cold War, no? Kung ano-ano yung sinabi ng propaganda ng West against China. Tapos because of that Cold War antagonism, even within China, marami silang misperceptions about us. Ano ba misperception nila sa atin ay para tayong tutang-tuta tayo, mga ano tayo, mga alipin ng mga dayuhan, no? Uh, ganon, no? And so, yun ding mga scholars nila na nakapunta dito and who have interacted and made some exchanges with our people and institutions, na-clear, na correct yung misconceptions nilang yun. At when they come back, when they write about their observations, na-check at na-correct yung dating maling kaisipan ukol sa atin, no? And vice versa. Two-way yun eh. Two-way yun. So that leads to a better understanding. But whether or not we should look at China as an enemy or friend, I think being a large neighbor that with whom we must deal with, kailangan pa rin pag-aralan natin ng China, no? Kailangan pag-aralan natin kasi that's why I'm encouraging more graduate students, more of our people to learn about China, to study its intricacies and how their people think. No, because that's the best way to deal with a big power, no? Kasi kahit na hindi natin kaaway, even in trade negotiations, we need to understand our adversary, yung kabila, di ba? So that we can get better terms for our country, for our
Okay.
interest, to advance our interests.
Okay, Professor. Time check lang po muna tayo. It's actually 11:43 a.m. na po, Philippine Standard Time. At syempre, kayo po ay kasalukuyan pa rin pong nandito ngayon sa ating Facebook Live, no, sa ating The National Policy Facebook page. At pinag-uusapan nga po natin yung Philippines-China relations, perspective and challenges. Well, actually, Professor, no, konting panahon na lang tong pero ang dami pa nating question, but bigyan ko ng pagkakataon nitong si from the Katipunan Channel, Ver Archivido. The Philippines seeking the help of the US on the South China Sea dispute by allowing more EDCA sites slash US military bases all over the country is apparently inviting an armed conflict, nuclear war with China. Note that Russia has also warned the Philippines because of the deployment of the US Typhoon mid-range missiles in Lawag City, which they believe is aimed at them because of its reach. Not to mention other neighboring countries that are alarmed with the conflict ongoing. You have mentioned, Professor Simbulan, that diplomacy is the solution, bilateral talks. These actions are addressed to our leaders, but they seem not listening to your wise words. What can the simple Filipino people or Juan de la Cruz do in order to help avert nuclear war in this part of the world? Professor.
Uh, well, keep on keep on doing what we're trying to do to prevent uh, the war or conflict from happening. No, and there's no loss in keep on trying to prevent war. I think kung meron mang in fact, I remember during the 80s, no, nung height nung first Cold War, 'di ba? Dati yung Cold War between the US and the former Soviet Union. Akala ng marami inevitable yung nuclear war no? Akala nila kasi ang lalo na ang Russia no ng Soviet Union, even the former, so to continue at the time akala ng marami talaga ano yung sa rivalry ng US and Soviet Union dahil ang Soviet Union was also engaging in an arms race. Many thought that walang inevitable na talagang nuclear war, but people, especially the anti-war movement in Europe, in the United States, and other parts of the world, kept on pressing for dialogue, exchanges, no, and mutual understanding between the two parties, no. So eventually na ano din na nag-wane yung ng Cold War, no, na prevent yung nuclear war. Although there were uh, uh, conventional wars that happened, pero at least yung na-avert yung nuclear war. The thing is, and I think that we should not lose hope in continuing our engagement and dialogue with especially people to people dialogue, no, kasi maraming sectors involved here na pwedeng mag-interact, and perhaps these sectors among these countries involved can also help in convincing their own policymakers that the best way out of this is to engage in talks, dialogues, and diplomacy, and avoid war, because no one is a victor in a war, in warfare, especially because of the weapons at the disposal of these big powers. Remember, in the case of the Philippines, for example, kasi mga US EDCA bases dito with missiles trained against enemies of the United States. Maraming kaaway ang US Hindi lang ang China, hindi lang ang Russia, but even North Korea, di ba? And these countries are also, because of we are militarizing our if we are militarizing our country, they feel that we are helping threaten them, no, or their interests, no. So we want that we want to avoid that, or keep away yung conflict, no. So maraming possibilities of dialogue and interactions, no, among scholars, no, academics, think tanks, businessmen,
Yes.
uh, and other sectors of our society, no,
Okay.
uh, people to people, no. And I think that to some extent we have managed to begin that.
Mm-mm.
Expand na lang natin yung interactions na yon.
Anyway, Professor, given the complexities of Philippine-China relations, what role does media play in shaping public perception and policy debates?
Yeah, of course, the media plays a significant part, no. Maybe yung encountering warmongering and sensationalism that oftentimes is added in our airwaves, no. And kasi kung minsan yung kapag yung may mga incidents that happen that uh, we can still avoid conflict, no, military conflict. I think this can be avoided if the media keeps a sober voice, no, in reporting these incidents. And even kasi in the history and experience of past major wars, especially world wars, yung sensationalism, tsaka yung minsan yung may mga leaders kasi na ini-inflame yung mga tao, no. Unfortunately minsan ginagamit pa yung
Media.
media, no, to agitate for war and conflict, no, not realizing that this will only lead to destruction of our people and nation, no. And lalo na ngayon, yung weapons at the disposal sa enemies ng US, no, they are weapons of mass destruction, and they are several hundreds times more powerful and terrifying. So dapat sana natin, no, let's keep a sober tone. Kasi kung minsan yung may mga leaders ng mga bansa, pag may mga incidents, talaga agitate ng ng action na kailangan yan, sagutin, no, tit for tat, no. And I think that we all have a role to play. And I'm not wholly referring to the media here, but perhaps yung counterparts ninyo sa China also, because you two can interact with them, no. Yung so para ma-avoid yung very confrontational reactions that will only lead us towards uh, mutual destruction. So yun ang aking yung message ko lang, no.
Mm-mm.
Uh,
Oo.
all one world, all
Ah,
one world.
mm-mm.
Interest natin to keep our world safe and peaceful.
Mm. Right. Anyway, Professor, no, I have a lot of questions here. Sinum up ko na lang yung pong hindi ko nabanggit kanina. Actually, si Miss Kital Cash, yung question mo related na to dun sa question na ibinigay ko kanina at sinagot na ni Professor Simbulan. But of course, kung halimbawa pong kaharap nyo ang ating Pangulo ngayon, Professor Simbulan, kasama na ang mga mambabatas natin sa bansa ngayon. Ano po ang gusto nyong iwan na mensahe po sa kanya kaugnay dito sa tinalakay po natin ngayong umagang ito, Professor?
Well, ang mensahe ko lang sa ating Pangulo at sa ating mga leader, sana ay mag-ano tayo, no? Mag-focus tayo sa pagpapaunlad ng ating ekonomiya, para ang ating mamamayan naman ay umahon sa kahirapan at yan ang bigyan natin ng atensyon, hindi yung pagbibili ng mga mas marami pang armas na panggagastusan natin at uh, maano lang no distract from our economic our economic objectives of improving the lives of our people. And I think that yun ang kailangan ng maraming bansa ngayon, no? Yung to help each other, for the more prosperous countries to help the less prosperous countries through trade, through people to people dialogue and interactions, so that we can all benefit from the prosperity that we are all we all want to happen, no, for our families and for our country. Yun lang.
Thank you so much, Professor. At sana po ay hindi lamang po ito ang una at huli na makakasama ka namin sa mga webinars ng NP Multimedia Services. At sigurado po ako mauulit po itong mga webinar together with other resources speakers po natin. Maraming salamat po again in behalf of the NP Multimedia Consultant Services.
Sige, maraming salamat din sa inyong paanyaya at Merry Christmas sa inyong lahat.
Thank you so much. Okay, bago po, dahil hindi po natin nakasama ang ating susunod na speaker, but meron po siyang ilang mga ibinigay po sa atin, no, na mga mensahe at lagi po niyang paalala. I don't know kung nakikita niyo po, but sabi po ni Itos Valdez sa kanyang inilabas noong April 23, 2024, kaugnay po dito sa mga kaguluhan sa West Philippine Sea at iba pa sa EDCA po natin. Sabi po niya, make no mistake, we are on the brink of a global war, the likes of which has no precedent. As Abraham Lincoln said, with malice towards none and charity towards all, the gift of the human creative intellect is best directed towards fighting the true enemy of all peoples. That is poverty, hunger, maldevelopment, unemployment, and sickness. Yan po ang binanggit po niya. At meron pa siyang isa rito, our nation was built on the ideals of freedom and sovereignty. Not globalism, not communism. It's those same principles that will save it. Then, as now, our Constitution shows us the way. At kung matatandaan po ninyo, dahil nga po, importante po, sabi nga po ni Professor, napakahalaga po ng kapayapaan. At katumbas ng ng kaunlaran ay kapayapaan. Yan po. So, yung pong tayo ang buong mundo ay nasa crossroads, lalo na po tayo dito sa Pilipinas. Tayo ba ay pupunta patungo sa pagpapaunlad hindi lamang ng ating bayan, kundi ng lahat ng mga bansa sa buong mundo, o tutungo tayo patungo sa isang nuklear na digmaan? Of course, ayaw po nating totally na mamatay ang buong sangkatauhan. Gusto natin ay magkaroon ng isang maunlad at mapayapang mga bansa dito sa ating mundong ginagalawan. Isa pong maishishare ko ang Treaty of Westphalia o Peace of Westphalia na isang ehemplo po, isang buhay na ehemplo ayon sa ating kasaysayan. And please, let me quote you, ito pong binanggit ng yumaong si Professor Antonio Valdez. Peace through the advantage of the other. At ito po ay inilabas niya sa isang malaking pagpupulong po na nandun po ang iba't ibang bansa rin. Sabi po niya rito, the present ongoing dispute here in Southeast Asia, particularly the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea, is a case which I believe may find resolution along the principles I have described above. Ideally, the Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte or ang presidente na po natin ngayon, ang ating si Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos, may consider convening the 10 ASEAN countries to propose to all countries involved the very principles which have found acceptance in Europe in the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia considered the following. 1. China and the 10 member nations of the ASEAN may convene into a non-aggression treaty and committing to a mutually beneficial agreements of exploiting the resources of the disputed waters. 2. Guarantee the freedom of navigation to all commercial and military vessels intending to use the Straits of Malacca going to or coming from the respective locations. 3. To encourage the construction of the Krak Canal in Thailand in order to decongest Malacca Straits and provide all with an alternative route for benefit of all nations. And 4. A demilitarization of the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea, the whole Southeast Asia should ban military bases for nuclear weapons. And 5, for China and the ASEAN to propose assistance to the U.S. in rebuilding its infrastructure requirements, especially a network of fast rail system and accommodation mutually beneficial to demands of fair trade. No less than the renowned philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz in his Ethics, Law, and Civilization in 1693, in the reference to the Peace of Westphalia principles, said that charity is universal benevolence, and benevolence is the habit of loving. Moreover, to love is to take delight in the happiness of another, or what amounts to the same thing. It is to regard another's happiness as one's own. We all must realize the China Sea dispute is not merely a Philippines or China problem. It, in fact, has global security implications, just as in many other regional disputes. It is not enough that a treaty be signed by the parties without efficient assurances that all will abide. It is also difficult to enforce where leaders change and so may their motivations. But what will bind the countries more must necessarily include the beneficial effect on all their populations. An economic order which assures development and prosperity for all. Yan po ang iniwan po sa ating mensahe ng yumaong si Professor Antonio Valdez. Dati po siyang Department of Education Undersecretary nung panahon po ni President Joseph Estrada. Anyway, with that, maraming salamat po sa lahat po ng mga nandito po ngayon, kay Professor Roland Simbulan. It's an honor at nagpapasalamat po ang buong NP Multimedia Consultancy Services. Nagpapasalamat po ang sa mga media po na kasama po natin. Thank you so much. Again, have a peace day forward para po sa ating bansa at sa buong mundo. Thank you so much. Okay. Music.